to try to get back into showing you my blood sugars. This is my graph for the past 12 hours. It's been pretty good. And I'm at 150 right now and stable. I took a little bit of insulin to see if I can drop it down. Trying to get back into being bold with insulin, even amongst my whole entire crazy life. But today's video, as you probably can tell, is going to shed a little bit of light on what people without diabetes typically don't see, or the side of diabetes nobody really knows about. So with that being said, let's jump right into today's video. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And as you probably can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to jump into my worst diabetes day I ever had, which would have been July 6th. Excuse me, I'm a little confused on the date here. I was looking at my previous calendar, which would have been July 6th, 2020. And I broke a record with my blood sugars, and it was for a reason that I couldn't control. The cannula in my pump was actually completely kinked, and I assumed when I pulled my pump off, nothing weird was going to happen, but when I pulled it off, there was instantly insulin everywhere, and I didn't get any of my 4 units I needed for breakfast, and my blood sugar nearly hit 400, and let me tell you, I thought I was going to end up in DKA, that I was going to end up in the hospital, and the following day, I had to go back into my clinicals and finish up a few things that we missed from the spring here because of COVID-19. Our clinic actually, as you probably already know from following my channel, if you have for a while, shut down. So we have to come back this July and make up clinical hours with patient treatment and or instrumentation. And this was last week that this happened, and it was just a basic day in clinic, but we weren't treating patients. We were doing seminar stuff and learning new tools that can help us with future patients in the next upcoming couple semesters, and in our careers actually working clinically with our patients. But even still, I was very nervous that I wasn't going to be able to go to school because of this whole entire situation. So I'll kind of explain a little backstory as to what happened and how I finally figured out that it was my pump, and then I'll include an actual clip that I did film on that day, so you really can see the raw reality of how it makes a type 1 diabetic feel, not only physically, but emotionally. This is not something that nobody should have to deal with. This is something that the side of diabetes that nobody really sees. This is the side of diabetes nobody likes to talk about. And like I said, I broke a record at 369 with my blood sugar, and it took a very long time for it to come down. I'll actually put a graph in of what my day looked like here for you to kind of get an idea of what was going on. But thank God I had my continuous glucose monitor, and if you've been following my channel for maybe at least a few weeks, if you just joined my channel recently, or if you've been following my channel for nearly 2 years that I've had it, you would know that for a while I was without my CGM because of a mix-up and a screw-up with the Costco CMPP program. I buy my Dexcoms out of pocket. That is a totally different video. I did explain more about that, but who would have think that, if this would have happened when I didn't have my CGM, who would have thought that this would have happened and I didn't even realize my blood sugar was going that high because without a CGM or without being on top of things. And this is where diabetes can get dangerous. This is where diabetes can do damage. And the whole entire day I was so frustrated, wondering what kind of damage did I do to my body? Is this reversible? Is this something that is going to be affecting me long term? Is this going to make a difference on my next A1C? I don't foresee it making the next difference because I don't get a new A1C till October. And it's not like I continuously ride high blood sugars, so it really isn't going to jack up my A1C too bad. But you sit and wonder about all these what ifs and what could happen, and it's very scary, and it's very, very nerve-wracking to go through this experience. So I woke up, it was kind of funny because I changed my pump site the night before, and it was on my left arm where my pump is now, and I actually moved it down a little further, because I wanted to use my arm site, because I know my arm site's never absorbed bad. I rotate it up and down around the arm, kind of where the fatty tissue is, and I knew for a fact that I picked a good site. It wasn't scar tissue or anything. So I changed my pump site the night before, and I noticed I had a hard time getting my blood sugar that was sitting kind of at 180 to 200 to just start dropping. Normally if I take a unit, it'll just kind of start gently heading down and we'll be good. It took two or three units to get it down, and I'm like, what the heck? Overnight, my blood sugars were fine. They were 120, 130, 110. They kind of sat in that really nice, healthy zone of not super high, super low. I would have rather have been sitting in the night. I like to ride in the 80s, 90s, 100s at night, low 100s. I don't particularly like to ride 120s and 130s. But the whole entire night, considering I was fighting that many high blood sugars, I was totally fine with it. So I'm like, great, whatever a problem, maybe just a new pump had to get used to or something like that, a new site. I'm like, fine, great. So I went and took my insulin for my breakfast. I think it was like 30-some carbs. And it wasn't even a super high carb breakfast. Like I said, it was more something I'm used to and I can dose for. As long as I dose this much insulin and wait 20 minutes, I usually don't have a problem. And as a matter of fact, it was the exact same breakfast I ate today. And as you can see, we're drifting up a little bit. I'm at 155 now, but you can see I basically had zero problems overnight and even when I ate my breakfast. Maybe like a couple little spikes or something like of that sort. But it wasn't like a huge takeoff and drop down like I had, or just a huge takeoff and I couldn't get it to drop down. So I took like my 4.35 units, waited 20 minutes, began eating. Went into my local post office, got my mail, did a couple other things, and all of a sudden my blood sugars, I keep getting a notification. Double arrows headed up, you're headed up super fast. So at 230 or 250, I actually took another, I put a temp basal on, and I think I took an injection or another unit on my pump. And I thought it would level it off. No, it didn't. It kept climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. And I'm like, okay, obviously this wasn't enough. So I took a shot. Still kept climbing. And I continuously climbed till I hit like 369. And I'm like, oh no, there's something terribly wrong. And now at this point, I'm really starting to feel sick. I'm starting to be dry in the mouth. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel nauseated. I did not have any ketones present at the time. Very thankful for that. And I think it was due to how... Truly, yes, I was high for a while, but I wasn't high for hours on end to where I could have had time to build up ketones, if that makes sense. So I was kind of like, okay, that's a good thing. At least my risk of DKA right now is pretty low, even though I'm really starting to feel some of the warning signs of DKA, like the nauseation and tiredness. And I wasn't so much like angry or moody, but I definitely was very tired, and like I was like, couldn't do anything. Like all I could, and the anxiety was starting to take over my body. It was horrifying, and anxiety is only going to make it worse, but I was trying to calm myself down and figure this out. So then I should have thought of this earlier, I finally had the inhibition after sitting at like 360 for an hour to take my pump off. I ripped my pump off. Insulin spilled out everywhere, and I'm like, oh no, I bet you your bottom dollar I did not get a single drip of insulin. And I looked at the pump, and the cannula was inserted correctly. If you have an Omnipod, they kind of go in at like a 45-ish degree angle. The cannula was totally inserted properly. It wasn't bent. It wasn't like shortened or really curled around or anything to where like it was completely blocked off. But around maybe... the first 6 millimeters that are from the actual cannula go into the skin. Maybe in the middle part of that 6 millimeters, it was totally pinched off like a balloon. So like this tip of the cannula was open. This part was totally pinched off like a pinched straw, and the rest was open. So that leads me to believe I was getting very minimal insulin for such a long time. And I probably, in that morning hours, I was without basal insulin. And that's why that shot did absolutely nothing to drop it. It just kept my blood sugar steady. So I'm very, very thankful I was able to quickly figure that out. As soon as I changed my pump site and I flipped it to the other arm with a totally different pump, and I took another injection just to be safe, and I'm like, okay, if you're at least putting some insulin in your body, even if your blood sugars aren't ideal right now, you have insulin present in your body. So there's no reason for you to end up in diabetic ketoacidosis at this point. My blood sugars went down. And then I ate a little something, and then they kind of sat at like 240-ish for like 3 hours, and then I finally got them done. I finally got them to drop and go down. So that was really, really awesome that way. And I'm very thankful I had the good mindset to change my pump, the right mindset to change my pump, because not everybody's going to have that intuition to really check everything. And I knew for a fact my insulin vial was not bad because of the fact that I just took it out of the fridge yesterday and I didn't leave it in hot weather, cold weather, or nothing. I didn't drop it. Nothing got rattled around. There's no reason that this vial of insulin should be bad. There was no blood even in the cannula when I pulled it off my arm. It was almost like it just was completely pinched off underneath my skin, and I was not getting things. And that would explain even the night before why it took so long to drop a mildly elevated blood sugar down to a healthier blood sugar level. So that is my very crazy story of how Maddie came to find her very first poor pump site and had her worst blood sugar day ever since she's been diagnosed. And this is nearly 2 years. As a matter of fact, July 22nd is 8 days away from the day I'm filming this video, and it will be 2 years that I've been living with type 1 diabetes, and that's absolutely crazy to me. How far I've come as a person and how far I've come on this YouTube channel. So then my next steps were obviously to call Omnipod and report the problem. So I basically called them, explained the situation. He went through a bunch of things, checking, asking me if my pump was in a muscular site, if I rotate my sites, which is all stuff I've went through in my head before, but you got to report the problem, right? They're trying to help you troubleshoot just as much as you are. So I'm kind of like, no, nothing like that. And he asked me what kind of insulin I used, and he asked me how old the pump site was, if I had ketones, if I had to have medical help or seek medical assistance for this issue, and no. And then I finally, I kind of explained everything to him, and then he said, yeah, that definitely would cause a problem. I'm sorry for this experience. We'll be sending you a replacement pod in your next shipment. And when you get those pods, we will send a red bag to return back that pod to the actual insulin corporation. Excuse me, the actual insulin corporation, because they want to do an inspection with the engineering firm to see why that pump ended up pinched off. And I told him, I said, maybe it was a manufacturing error. And I said, it's not that I have a problem with the manufacturing error. I said, the issue is this is life or death for somebody. This isn't just, if I forget my insulin, I'm going to be fine. No, if I go without insulin, even for just the shortest period of time, I'm going to end up so sick. I'm going to end up possibly in the hospital, and look how it would have affected my ability to continue on in my program if this would have happened on the day that I was in those clinics. Thank God it was on a day that I wasn't in clinic, and I truly believe I had God on my side that day, because you know what? I would have been totally screwed, like, if I was at school throwing up or totally sick and not able to focus, and that was, the first time ever I've had a super high blood sugar beyond being diagnosed that I literally couldn't think straight. I literally could not focus on anything but that, and it was horrible. I couldn't even clean my house or anything that I had planned to do for the day because diabetes decided to throw a monkey wrench in things, or the actual technology I was using failed me. So this is the side of diabetes nobody sees. Beyond the costs, beyond the physical struggles, everything else, it's the emotional struggle. It's the, am I going to die because this isn't going to work? Am I going to end up dealing with this because this isn't working? Am I going to get this or that because of so-and-so, or because of this company or that company? And then somebody made a really good comment on my channel, and I couldn't remember exactly what the word's saying, but they don't teach you any of that negotiable liability with diabetes. They don't teach you how to finagle through insurance. They don't teach you, how to deal with all the medical terminology and backgrounds. They don't teach you how to fight for what you deserve as a type 1 diabetic. They don't teach you any of that. They just teach you to take care of yourself. They don't tell you all the ups and downs you'll have with trying to get insulin, trying to get pump supplies, trying to get CGM supplies. And I'm here to voice for you that all type 1 diabetics should, at the very minimum, have access to insulin and have access, sorry, that was my elbow, and have access to a continuous glucose monitor at the very minimum. Because you know what? This thing saved my life that day, because if I did not have my continuous glucose monitor, I would have had no clue that I was high. Maybe I would have started to feel nauseated or sick, or took a random blood sugar check and would have been like, oh no, 369, not good. But because I was able to see the trend of the blood sugar and how quickly it was rising, it led me to really think that there was something wrong with my insulin pump, and sure enough it was. And I will say, if you are newly diagnosed type 1 diabetic, or newly transitioned to an insulin pump, or you've had an insulin pump and have not had any failures yet, you will experience it at some point in time. Now, I've had pumps that have failed on me and screamed. With Omnipod, I've had other issues, maybe some poor absorption or something, especially on my thighs. I don't get the greatest absorption, but I still use them, and I try to use only the certain part of my thigh that kind of rotates inward and not outward, because I tend to get a little better absorption on the inner part of my thigh than I do the outer part. So I just kind of stick them there and not on the outside. But I've never truly had a cannula kink or a cannula bent completely where I was not getting insulin. You will go through this at some point in your diabetes journey. I'm here to tell you that, and I'm here to tell you to be on top of it. I'm here to tell you to really watch those blood sugars, and to really, really watch every little thing you're doing with diabetes, because one little thing can totally screw you over. So with that being said, I'm going to share the clips that I've had from that day, and you could truly see how, like, you could totally see the emotional strain I was dealing with and how I handled it and in the moment, and you know, I did what I could do and I was able to get everything to come down. So in the end it worked out, but just to think if it didn't work out, where I would be. I could be in the hospital in DKA. I could have caused tons of organ damage. The DKA could have gotten so bad I could have ended up in a coma. There are so many what ifs, but you know what? I'm not going to look at those what ifs anymore. I'm going to look at it as I had a savior on my side. I'm going to look at that I had the brains and I had the capability to take care of myself. Even though I was in a mental fog, that I knew there was something wrong. Listen to your body. Watch everything you're doing. I really cannot emphasize that enough as a type 1 diabetic, to watch yourself. Like, I'm serious. Any little thing you do can really put a big old havoc on your blood sugars. So anyways, I will role play those clips for you and show you what kind of happened, and then I will end the video. Hey y'all, this is really an unexpected video, but I want to really emphasize that, like, if your high blood sugars get super high, be on top of them. I just changed a pump site, and I did notice that this morning, it was great running basals and everything. All of a sudden this morning, I went from like 120 up to like 300 and something from my breakfast, and I shouldn't have gotten that because I gave the appropriate amount of insulin and ate a fairly low carb breakfast. Not that it was zero carb, but it was enough carbs that I knew I would have covered it. I pulled my pump off, and I had this little spot. I don't know which spot it is. I think it's this one. And very interestingly enough, it had like a little blood ring around it. And the cannula was not bent or anything, but it leads me to believe that it didn't insert all the way, and that's why I didn't get my insulin for my breakfast here, and it just gradually kept going up and up and up. I gave myself a shot of 1.5 units when my blood sugar was 317. An hour later, it went up to 369. So the first thing I thought is, do I have ketones? Nope, those are good. Slugging water like crazy. I'm okay to exercise knowing there's no ketones. Now maybe you're saying, Maddie, don't exercise, but I find if I have no ketones, and as long as I keep hydrated and keep giving myself injections, that I continue to get insulin in my body in some sort of way, I will be totally fine. That is how I personally view it. And my monitor kept saying I'm still going up at 383, and I'm like, what the heck? I just did a finger prick. I'm now at 328. So an hour ago, I dropped 50 points in an hour. So thank the Lord that I'm going in the right direction. But I always want you to remember that you need to go beyond your actual blood sugar reader. I just calibrated it, so hopefully it'll show that I'm actually heading in the downward direction. But just so you know, when you get to those high levels, work with your meter and your Dexcom to kind of get the best situation for you. I did give myself another 1.5 unit injection. So I've got about a little under 2 units of insulin on board. So plus the temp basal running with my new insulin pump. I did siphon the insulin out of this old pump. I knew it wasn't the insulin that was causing it because this is a brand new vial. It has not been exposed to anything else. There was no blood in the insulin or anything like that. There was just a blood ring right where the actual insertion went. So it leads me to believe that the cannula didn't go all the way underneath my skin or something of the sorts, where the insulin wasn't getting all the way underneath my skin and not absorbing properly. And oddly enough, when I went to draw the insulin out, all of a sudden a whole bunch of insulin squirted out the end. So it leads me to believe that I didn't get my full proper dose, if not any dose at all. So right now, thank God, I am on my way down. Like I said, keep an eye on those things. Make sure you're heading down, and thank God I intervened again. Otherwise, who knows where my blood sugars would be now. Always change your pump sites if you are a pump user. I am this close to being to switching to a different insulin pump or going back to shots because I'm having so many issues with Omnipod Dash. I had a PDM error yesterday, and I haven't had one in over 4 months, but they're not getting their stuff together. There's something totally wrong with their software, where I'm giving myself the appropriate amount of insulin, and I didn't change anything different about my diet. I didn't do anything different. I'm not sick. There's nothing that I can seriously think of that would have caused any heartache or distress with my blood sugars. I'm not really stressed. I don't have anxiety right now. I have anxiety now that I'm high, but prior to that, there was nothing really that could have exacerbated a high blood sugar other than this failed pump site. And like I said, my pump didn't fail on me, but I changed it anyway. So I'm going to give them a call and let them know. But I made this spontaneous video to let you know that high blood sugars even happen in diabetics like me. I broke a record. I'd never hit 360 some in almost 2 years. I went over 300 one time, and it was several months ago, and barely over 300, and now I'm almost at the point of getting under 300 into the 200s. So I'm kind of like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like, I really do truly think it's with Omnipod. The Dash system in particular, I really wish I would have been able to get the old system because I don't think there's as many issues with the old system as the new system. This is my 5th PDM replacement in about a year's time. I love being tubeless for the most part. It's pretty good. But when things are failing me, or every other time that I can contribute a high blood sugar to a poor pump site or a failed PDM or a failed pump, there's something wrong. I am inches, like I said, I'm inches to switching to a tandem pump now that United Healthcare will cover it. Or I might just go back on injections. I don't know. I'm at the point of literally just pulling my hair out, and it's like, I go back to my clinicals tomorrow, so it's like, what do? You know, like, I can't keep fooling around with poor technology like this. Like I said, I think this site is going to work now. I actually have a temp basal increase running, so hopefully that'll get my blood sugars down. And now, of course, just when I need my Dexcom most, gives me a sensor error. Well, anyways, it's not my fault that the Dexcom was also reading me a little bit higher. Actually, last night I had the same problem too. Yeah, that's when I ate breakfast, and you can see I gave myself 2 injections, but it's like, what the heck? You don't shoot up quite that quick unless you didn't get any insulin or minimal insulin for a meal you normally take a certain amount of insulin for, or a meal you know how to dose for on most given days. Now, not like I'm saying something weird could have happened, but to me, there's something really fishy going on when my blood sugars go that high. There's something wrong with the technology. There's something messed up. So hopefully I'll get my readings back soon, but I'll kind of show you the pattern of my blood sugars. It was really just annoying. So I was at 317, and then I went up to 369. Now I'm down to 328. So it's actually dropped 40 points in like 20 minutes. So I'm going to have to be kind of careful here. I thought it was within an hour, but at least I'm heading in the right direction, and I can kind of calculate how much. There's no insulin on board of my pump. There's a temp basal running. Depending on what I am in the next half hour for a blood sugar will determine if I shut that off, because obviously now I have active insulin in my body and it is working. I gave myself a unit and a half at 10:22, and it is 11:50 something, so half of that is worn off, so that's 0.75 point, I'm trying to think. Yes, 0.75 on board from that amount. And then my other injection is probably a little bit more than that. So I'm thinking I got about 2-ish units on board, or a little less. 2 units will drop me about 140, so I shouldn't be in too grave of danger. But like I said, I changed my pump site, and I'll just keep monitoring it. And as always, drink tons of water. Even if you don't have ketones, please, please, please continue to drink water, because this will help flush any ketones that may come out. And staying hydrated is extremely important for insulin sensitivity. Always change your pump site if you have issues. I can't stress it enough. Pumps can fail. Pumps can give you problems. And like I said, I found it very strange that that the cannula, number one, wasn't bent. But I found it very strange that when I pulled it off, it was not like bloody, but there, like I said, there was a little ring, and it almost looked like a little tick mark, almost like the cannula wasn't fully under my skin, even though I could clearly see in the window when it inserted, you could see it actually went through. But you never know what can happen with a pump, right? So I hope this video was helpful for you. Kind of a strange one, but I wanted to pop on and share this with you. That high blood sugar days and bad days do happen to everybody. I did make a video on this before, but I figured I'd make light in lieu of that. Things can happen, and my mouth is extremely dry right now. So that's why it's important to be drinking water. I'm really feeling the high blood sugar symptoms. I'm not nauseous or anything, but I definitely am ready to be going down. So keep those blood sugars down. And I can't imagine what people feel like if they're constantly running at levels like 200 to 300. Like, I feel horrible just being at like this level for, not even at 300 level for 3 hours. I was maybe at the 300 level, as you can see, for maybe what? I was maybe at that 300 level for what, maybe an hour-ish at most. I was kind of trending in those 200s maybe for the other 2 hours. You can even see my graph before that. It was giving me plenty of basal, you can see overnight. As a matter of fact, I did change my pump. This other couple highs were from the pump that I had on last night, and that's when I had my PDM errors. So like I said, I think I'm having too many problems with Omnipod at the moment to really justify maybe continuing with this pump. I don't know at this point. I have to make some sort of decision here, and I love Omnipod and I love being tubeless, but unfortunately if I keep having problems like this, my health is not worth an insulin pump. If I have to go back to shots, I will, or I could switch to a tandem pump, but I don't even know how I'd feel about tubing right now, especially being in school. Like, I could get caught up in so many different things and all that different stuff. So I may just go back to injections. I don't know. I'm at the point of doing it because at least I'm guaranteed to have long-acting insulin in my body. Heaven forbid, and nothing really can fail. The only thing that could fail you is if you totally miss your stomach or something and insulin spews out, or you inject and don't hold in long enough and all the insulin comes out of your body. But I've never ever had that issue because I always hold my insulin in plenty of enough time. So anyways, that is that. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Please stay safe. Please continue to stay healthy. And I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye, everyone. Just notice the cannula is not bent, but look at how skinny it is, like right before it inserts. Wow. It's totally pinched off. I don't know if you guys can really see it. I'll try to circle it in here when I edit, but oh my God, it is totally pinched off. Like, what the heck? That's really weird. See that? Bad pump site. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. I post videos every single week, or as often as I can, I should say. I'm trying to do every single week about my diabetes life plus more. Stay tuned. I've got lots more coming up for you. And I just looked on my phone maybe about a day and a half ago, and I realized I surpassed the 1,500. I'm not 500. That was a long time ago. The 1,500 subscriber mark, and I, like, every time I surpass another milestone, like, it just blows my mind away that, like, I've got a lot of people that are truly interested in this, like, and that I would have never ever, if you would have told me, like, 2.5 years ago that this is where I would be with my life, I would have told you were absolutely crazy, and this is not where I would be. But you know what? Here I am, sharing my experiences with you, sharing other parts of my life with you, and I'm really thankful for the amazing community that I have that has giving me nothing but really positive support and positive feedback, and has really enjoyed going on this journey with me. So until next time for another video, as always, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. I love you all. Bye.